Before the fire begins, before the transmutation starts, before anything inside you moves, there must be stillness. Not silence, stillness. There is a difference. Silence is absence. Stillness is presence without motion. It is a state not of doing nothing, but of becoming everything without needing to act. This is the first key of inner alchemy, and the one modern minds fear most. Because we are taught to begin with effort, to force change, to act, to push, to will our way into becoming. But the ancient alchemists knew nothing transforms through force. The transformation begins when you stop interfering. Imagine a crucible, an empty vessel. Before you place the elements, before the flame rises, you sit, you observe, you wait, you empty. This is what stillness does. It makes space. Without space, nothing new can enter. Without stillness, nothing hidden can rise. Without emptiness, there is no room for the real to appear. Stillness is not the absence of noise, it is the clearing of distortion. When you become still, your body stops reacting. Your breath softens. Your nervous system relaxes. And something underneath the story begins to emerge. That emergence is the beginning of alchemy. Not fireworks, not lightning, just awareness. You become the vessel. The fire is not lit yet, but the space is ready. And in that space, the fragments begin to speak. Parts of you that have long been suppressed, buried beneath thinking, rushing, fixing, they rise quietly. The part that was never heard, the feeling that never had a name, the instinct that was always ignored, they surface not to overwhelm you, but to be seen. Because the first step of transformation is not changing what is, but seeing it as it is. And only stillness can allow that. This is why inner alchemy cannot begin in movement. Because if you're always moving, you're never meeting yourself. You're just dancing around your shadow, running from the gold buried beneath your fear. Stillness is the pause before the ritual. It's the breath before the prayer. It's the moment when you stop reaching and start receiving. And it is in that stillness that the true fire, not the one you control, but the one that transforms, is drawn toward you. Not because you asked, but because you became available. True stillness is magnetic. It calls forward everything that's ready to change. Not through violence, not through volume, but through presence. The alchemist sits before the flame is lit and listens. And the stillness speaks. Not in words, but in warmth, in tremors, in the subtle shift from separation to sensing. The false layers begin to melt, the surface noise quiets, and something real, something old, something alive inside you begins to flicker. You don't light the fire. The fire comes when the vessel is ready to hold it. And the vessel is only ready when it is still. This is the first key, the first gate. The space before transformation, the silence before sound, the stillness before fire. You cannot change what you do not see, and you cannot see clearly what you constantly judge. This is the second key. The fire is lit, the stillness invited it, and now in this sacred heat what has been buried begins to rise. Old thoughts, old patterns, uncomfortable emotions, unfinished stories, forgotten parts of you that no longer match the identity you've worn. They begin to emerge not to hurt you, but to be witnessed. But here is the trap. The moment you label what rises good, bad, shameful, childish, enlightened, you interrupt the process. You stop the alchemy. Because judgment freezes what is meant to move. Imagine an alchemical substance heating in a crucible. It bubbles, it smokes, it changes form. But what happens if you constantly stick your hands in the mixture? Stir it, stop it, press it down? You distort the process. The same happens inside you. When you observe something, a thought, an emotion, a memory, and immediately say, "This is wrong. This shouldn't be here. This makes me weak. This means I'm not spiritual." You stop the alchemy. Because the gold doesn't appear in the clean parts, it emerges from the mess. And the only way to find it is to look at everything that surfaces without flinching, without naming, without fixing, without turning away, to see what is and not run. Observation without judgment is the ultimate act of presence. You are not trying to change. You are letting change occur. You are the observer, not detached, but deeply engaged, present, quiet, receptive. You become like a still lake, and what was once hidden in the depths rises to the surface, not to drown you, but to be finally acknowledged. Because everything that remains unseen, everything you've avoided, everything you pushed down because it felt wrong or ugly or unworthy, still lives in you, still shapes you. And the only way to dissolve it is not by purging or punishing, but by witnessing. Gently, bravely, clearly. You see the anger, you breathe. You see the sadness, you breathe. You see the desire to control, to prove, to disappear, to explode, and you breathe. You do not judge. You do not attach. You let the fire work. The ancient alchemists called this stage calcination the burning away of ego, illusion, false image. But they never rushed it. They watched. They waited. They allowed the elements to do what they were designed to do. And that's what you're learning now. To trust the emergence. To become the space where things unravel without needing to manage them. Because in that space, truth reveals itself. And truth, once seen without judgment, doesn't need to be healed. It simply returns to wholeness. You are not here to dissect your pain. You are here to receive its message. And you can only receive when you stop attacking what arises. You are not your thoughts. You are not your reactions. You are not your feelings. You are the awareness in which they pass. And when you stop judging what passes through, you become the field in which alchemy occurs. Not because you force change, but because you allow truth. This is the second key. Observation, still, deep, without verdict. Because judgment is noise, but observation is light. And only light can show you what's already ready to leave. You've worn it for so long you forgot it was a mask. The voice that speaks with certainty, the image that feels safe to present, the role you slip into when the world is watching. The you who smiles when it hurts, the you who knows what to say, the you who adapts, impresses, survives. That isn't your face, it's your shield. But alchemy does not work through performance, it works through exposure. And so this is the third key, dissolving the mask. Not tearing it off, not smashing it, not making war with it, but gently letting it melt like wax in the presence of heat. Because your mask was never evil. It was your first protection. You built it out of need, to be accepted, to belong, to be untouched by the world's teeth. You became what you were rewarded for. You hid what others rejected. You learned how to play human to keep the peace, or command respect, or just survive. But the fire has started, and the mask is beginning to drip. This moment is uncomfortable, because the mask is familiar. It feels like you. And without it, you might ask, who am I? Who am I without the story, without the titles, without the control? But that question isn't a threat, it's an invitation. Alchemy does not destroy who you are, it removes who you are not. You are not your defense mechanisms, you are not your curated image, you are not the narrative you repeat in silence. You are something far more honest, far more raw, far more real. But to find it, you must be willing to let the mask soften. How? You stop holding it. You stop trying to seem okay. You stop explaining yourself. You stop rehearsing your reactions. You let what's underneath rise. You let your face drop into truth, even if that truth is shaking, even if it cries, even if it can't articulate what it feels. This is not collapse. This is return. The ancients called this process solutio, the dissolving of the fixed self, the melting of structure into fluid, so that something new can form, not imposed, but emerged. When the mask melts, so does resistance. And what remains isn't weakness, it's presence. You stop trying to be seen a certain way, and you start seeing yourself clearly. Not the version others needed, but the one that's always been beneath it, all quiet, watchful, alive. Dissolving the mask doesn't mean you stop being strong. It means you stop being false. You begin to live from essence, not performance. From soul, not script. You speak less, but your words cut deeper. You move slower, but your steps ring truer. And those who meet you now don't meet your identity. They meet you. This is the gift of the third key. You no longer hide an image. You arrive in truth. You no longer grip the face the world applauded. You wear your real skin even if it trembles. Because only what is true can be transformed. And only when the mask dissolves can the alchemy touch what's real. There comes a moment in all true transformation where everything you thought you were begins to unravel. The stories no longer make sense. The plans fall away. The future you envisioned dissolves like smoke, and the old instincts to fix, to rebuild, to regain control no longer work. This is not failure. This is the threshold, the turning point between effort and emergence. The space where alchemy stops being a concept and starts becoming you. This is the fourth key, surrender to the process. Not giving up, not passively waiting, but surrendering in the deepest, most sacred sense, releasing the belief that you are in control of how, when, or what transformation should look like. Because here's the truth. You don't transform yourself. You allow it to happen. You create the conditions. You become available. You clear the space. The fire does the rest. And the fire does not ask your permission. It will take what needs to go. It will show what needs to be seen. It will destroy what cannot come with you into who you are becoming. That destruction is sacred. But to the part of you that still wants to hold on, it feels like death. Because it is. Not a literal death, but the death of the image, the death of certainty, the death of control. And in that death, something ancient inside you whispers, let it go, let it burn, let yourself fall into the space between forms. Because what waits on the other side of surrender is not emptiness but freedom. This is the paradox of inner alchemy. The moment you stop trying to change, change begins. When the caterpillar enters the chrysalis, it doesn't try to grow wings. It dissolves. Completely, utterly, without resistance. And only through that surrender does something new emerge. Not a better version of the old self, but something entirely different. You are not here to tweak your image. You are here to die into your truth. You are here to become. And the path to becoming is paved with surrender. Letting go of timelines. Letting go of who you thought you'd be by now. Letting go of spiritual checklists and polished performances. And instead entering the fire not as an alchemist, but as the element itself. You don't watch the process. You become it. And in that becoming, everything unnecessary melts away. You don't decide what to release. The fire chooses, and your only role is to say yes. Yes to the unknown. Yes to the undoing. Yes to the deeper wisdom that knows more than your mind ever could. Because beneath your fear of surrender is the truth. You were never in control. Not of the timing, not of the shape, not of the soul you are becoming. But you are in control of your willingness. And your willingness, your surrender, is the gate through which the impossible becomes inevitable. This is the fourth key. To fall into the mystery, to give up the reins, to trust that what is burning is only what no longer belongs. Because the fire is intelligent, the process is alive, and it knows exactly how to bring you home. The mind wants to explain, the body wants to feel. And between them, a war has been waged for lifetimes. But inner alchemy is not found in explanation. It is born in the raw, wordless experience of what is. This is the fifth key, feeling fully, without narrative. We are trained to tell stories about our feelings. This happened because of that. I feel this way because they did that. I'm angry because I was wronged. I'm sad because I failed. I'm afraid because I'm not enough. But none of that is feeling. That is thinking about feeling. And every time you explain your emotion, you begin to own it, justify it, defend it, and keep it alive. You do not let it pass. You keep it cycling in your system. Because the mind wants understanding, but the body only wants release. And the only way to release is to feel fully without the story. No reason, no logic, no narrative. Just sensation. Just what it is. In the chest, in the gut, in the throat, in the hands, in the trembling, in the stillness that holds it. This is the forgotten intelligence of the body. Because the body is the true alchemist. It holds the residue of old emotion. It remembers what the mind denied. It stores what you couldn't process when it first came. And now, in this moment, it wants to let go. But only if you stop interrupting. You must become still. You must soften. You must say, I will not run this time. I will not explain. I will not escape into thought. And then you feel, as if you were watching a storm move across the sky. No judgment, no narrative, just thunder, just rain, just lightning passing through. The emotion is the energy. The story is the cage. Alchemy does not need the cage. It needs the energy. And that energy will move if you allow it. You may cry without knowing why. You may shake without a reason. You may feel waves of grief that don't belong to your current life. That's okay. This is the fire releasing memory from your cells. This is your nervous system rebooting. This is integration through surrender. No interpretation needed. This is how emotion was meant to move, like weather, like breath, like electricity moving from cloud to earth and back again. But when you attach a story, you stop the movement. You build identity around pain. You become the victim, the hero, the shadow, instead of simply being the vessel through which the energy passes. So this is the practice. When feeling arises, you breathe. You place your hand on your body. You welcome it. You do not explain. You feel. You weep. You tremble. You sweat. You sink. And you listen to the body say, finally, thank you. Because the moment you stop defending your pain with story, it begins to leave. And what is left is space, peace, presence, clarity that doesn't need to be named. This is the fifth key. The story will tempt you, but the feeling will free you. Let go of explanation. Let go of why. Let go of the idea that healing needs narrative. Healing is not a sentence. It is a sensation fully felt. And when you give the body that gift, it alchemizes what the mind never could. Not everything that is wise speaks. Not everything that is real explains itself. Not everything that is true arrives with sound. This is the sixth key of inner alchemy, silence as intelligence. In a world addicted to noise, silence is seen as absence, as lack, as void. But to the ancient alchemists, silence was not emptiness. It was intelligence beyond the mind. Because what lives in silence is not ignorance, it is awareness that has no need to speak. It watches, it listens, it holds. And through that holding, something begins to shift. You begin to hear, not with ears, not with words, but with presence itself. Because true intelligence doesn't come from thinking, it comes from attuning. You don't understand the world by analyzing it. You understand it by becoming quiet enough that the world begins to reveal itself to you. This is not passive. It is active listening. It is receptive knowing. It is the kind of awareness that births wisdom not through answers, but through resonance. Silence is a tuning fork. It aligns you with what's real. It shows you what doesn't fit. It reveals the subtle tone of truth beneath the noise. Most people never experience this, because most people cannot sit in silence for more than a moment without reaching for a distraction. A sound, a scroll, a sentence, a solution. But silence, true silence, is the fire that burns away the mental chatter and leaves only clarity. And clarity is the real philosopher's stone. To sit in silence is to agree to hear what you've been avoiding, not from others, from yourself. In the silence, the false begins to fall away. The masks, the poses, the postures of performance, they cannot survive where no one is watching, where no one is applauding, where only presence remains. And what is left is essence. You begin to feel your own field, your own breath, your own truth, not the truth you explain, but the one that simply is. And it does not need to be named. This is where inner alchemy matures, not in the fire of drama, but in the still, golden glow of knowing. The knowing that cannot be taught, only remembered, only heard in the spaces between thought. The silence becomes your teacher. It shows you who you are when the noise is gone. It shows you what wants to rise when nothing else is pulling your attention. And in that state, you become magnetic, rooted, stable, not because you have answers, but because you no longer need them. This is the paradox. The more silent you become, the louder the truth speaks. And not in sentences, in sensations, in direction, in alignment. This is the silence of the trees, the silence of the stars, the silence of the sacred flame that does not flicker because it does not doubt. It simply burns. And you remember what it feels like to rest inside yourself without searching. That is not emptiness. That is arrival. This is the sixth key. Do not run from silence. Enter it, Bow to it. Let it show you what no voice ever could. Because when silence becomes your ally, you no longer need to search for truth. You become it. Alchemy does not end in the fire. It ends in the return. But not the return to who you were. Not to the role. Not to the image. Not to the story. The return is not a loop. It is a spiral. You come back to the world, but you are changed. Not by effort, not by philosophy, but by experience. This is the seventh key, returning as gold. In ancient alchemy, the final phase was called rubedo, the reddening, the stage after darkness, after dissolution, after purification, when the work is no longer theory, but has become substance. Not the idea of wholeness, wholeness itself. This is not the performance of transformation. It is embodiment. You have walked through stillness. You've faced the flame. You've dissolved. You've wept, surrendered, listened. You've stripped the mask, felt the storm, entered the silence. And now, you return, not shining from the outside, but radiating from within. You walk differently now, not faster, but deeper. You speak with fewer words, but they carry more weight. You are no longer seeking light. You have become a source of it. And yet you make no announcement. You do not preach. You do not explain. Because gold does not need to introduce itself. It simply is. You begin to live from a place that cannot be faked. Clarity, groundedness, compassion without performance, presence without exhaustion. The work is no longer effort, it is your nature. You are not pretending to be awakened. You are not fighting to stay in the light. You have integrated the dark. You have befriended the shadow. You have held your own flame in the cave. And now you walk in both worlds. You bring truth into conversation. You bring stillness into action. You bring depth into the ordinary. And this is the final phase of alchemy, not transcendence, but embodied return. You go back into your life, but now you are a catalyst. You are not here to fix others. You are not here to convert. You are here to become a mirror through which others may remember themselves. This is what gold does. It reflects, it holds, it transmits, without needing to try. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to maintain an image of transformation, because the real work has already happened. Not in public, but in fire, in stillness, in silence. And now, the light within you is stable, no longer reactive, no longer proving, just present. And in your presence, others begin to soften, walls drop, truth rises, not because of your words, but because of your being. This is the end of the alchemical path, not enlightenment, but integration. You don't escape the world, you return to it differently. Rooted, open, real, not shining like gold, being it.